A badge went into a shredder before breakfast. 11 years, gone in one bite. Gone in one bite. The woman who lost it would be saluted by 37 United States Navy men before lunch.
Salute!
A badge went into a shredder before breakfast. 11 years, gone in one bite. The woman who lost it would be saluted by 37 United States Navy men before lunch. Do you know what that means, Miss Blake? 37 beds in one night. 37 admissions I never approved. You are nothing, sweetheart. The badge is plastic. What I did with it is not. Effective immediately. I will walk you out, honey. That box suits you. Stay with me, because 21 days before that parking lot, 37 Navy trainees walked through her doors poisoned and choking. What she did before sunrise would end 2 careers by lunchtime. Comment where you're watching from. Now let's rewind. Sutton Blake had worked the night shift at Driftwood General for 11 years. That hospital ran better in the dark than it ever did in daylight. Nobody upstairs would admit that. Everybody on a stretcher knew it fast. She was 37. The charge nurse nobody argued with twice. Driftwood Harbor was a small coastal town in Georgia. Shrimp boats worked one side of the water. A Navy training base held the other. Driftwood General sat in the middle like a lighthouse, trying to keep both sides honest. Sutton's mother had worked there 30 years before her, mopping floors and holding hands nobody else had time to hold. When Sutton graduated nursing school, her mother gave her an old stethoscope with words engraved on the metal ring. Everyone comes first. Her mother died the next spring. Sutton never took that stethoscope off during a shift. At home was a small yellow house and a husband named Dax Colby, a tugboat engineer with a laugh that made the porch creak. He never once asked her to be smaller than she was. There were things about Sutton that Driftwood General never knew. A worn brass button on her keychain. A folded flag in a glass case on their bookshelf that visitors assumed belonged to some uncle. Sutton let them assume. 8 years of her life sat inside that glass, silent. Some people hear about years like that and see a hero. Other people see a threat. Dean Kessler saw threats everywhere and value nowhere. He was 63, the hospital's director for 3 years, pulled in from an insurance company where he'd built a name denying claims faster than anyone in the building. He kept a wooden sign on his desk with one word carved into it: margin. He ran the hospital like a butcher runs a scale, thumb always pressing down, and he called that pressure excellence. Next to him, always one step closer than any chart explained, stood Bianca Thorne, the chief nursing officer. 41. Red lipstick fresh at 7 in the morning and fresh at 7 at night. She hadn't touched a patient in 6 years, but could make a spreadsheet bleed. Her car showed up in Kessler's parking spot most Fridays. Once, a phone left on speaker 2 seconds too long let the whole nursing office hear him call her babe. Nobody laughed. Everybody remembered. Twice that year, Sutton had filed the same request: a decontamination station for the ambulance bay and a real drill for chemical exposure. She wrote it plainly. Asterisk, we sit 1 road away from a Navy training pool. If something goes wrong, it comes to us first. Asterisk. Twice it came back stamped denied in Kessler's red ink, with a note in tight, elegant handwriting everyone recognized and nobody could prove. Asterisk ambitious. For nothing. Asterisk. Sutton smoothed the pages flat and filed them in her locker. She wasn't sentimental about insults. She kept records. Across the water that same month, a maintenance worker at the Navy's training pool wrote one line in a logbook nobody read twice: chlorine feed valve, intermittent fault, recommend service. 21 days later, the valve stopped waiting. The Monday before it happened, Kessler held his staff meeting in the cafeteria. When budgets came up, Sutton stood and asked, a 3rd time, about the decon station. She had the numbers ready: tarps and hoses, $1,900. Closing a contaminated ER for 1 day, over $1 million. This is a hospital, not a car wash, Kessler said. The room laughed the way people laugh when their paycheck depends on it. He balled up her request and lobbed it toward the trash. It bounced off the rim and landed at her feet. File it where it belongs. Sutton picked it up, smoothed it against her leg, folded it once, and slid it into her shirt pocket. She sat down without a word. By Friday, her schedule changed. Off-charge duty. Reassigned to counting supplies. Her extra pay vanished with 1 keystroke. A write-up appeared in her file for tone with leadership. A young nurse named Nadia cried in the med room. Sutton handed her a tissue and kept restocking saline like it was any other Tuesday. You don't fight every wave, Sutton told her. You pick the one that matters, and you stand up in front of it. Even stuck counting supplies, she kept saving the hospital from itself. That Wednesday, a pharmacy scanner glitched and sent a dose 10 times too strong toward an elderly patient. Sutton caught the label from across the hallway and stopped it. She never wrote anyone up. Numbers don't forgive, she told the shaking nurse. So we checked them for each other. That was the woman the top floor called nothing, and she was the one holding the whole building up. One evening at home, Sutton took an unsigned resignation letter out of her locker drawer. She'd typed it on a bad night months ago and never signed it. 11 years. A crushed budget request. A schedule built to break her. She held the pen over the signature line. Then she looked at the old photo of her mother, smiling from a hallway she'd mopped 10,000 times and never once owned. Everyone comes first. Her mother never said whose name came last. That had always been the point. Sutton called her husband. Wind and engine noise crackled behind his voice. Out on the water. Finish your shift, Sutton, Dax said. Storms don't apologize. Neither should you. She laughed for the first time in days. She put the letter back behind the photo and went out to work. It was a quiet night. The kind sailors don't trust. At 11:41 p.m., the radio crackled. Every emergency room knows the ordinary sound of that channel. Fender benders, chest pain, the unlucky, and the drunk. This was not that sound. The voice came flat, the way people talk when they wish the words belonged to a drill. Asterisk mass casualty declaration. Chemical exposure at the Navy training pool. Patient count, 37, asterisk. The room went still. Someone whispered that county hospital, 20 extra minutes down the coast, should take the overflow. That was true. 20 extra minutes was also a number with funerals hiding inside it. Every head on the night shift turned, without a word, toward the back hallway, toward the nurse counting bandages under a buzzing light. The one the top floor had spent a month teaching everyone not to look at. She set down her clipboard. She was already moving. Copy, county. Driftwood is ready. Send them all. Nobody corrected her. Ready was a lie the size of the building. She made it true in 19 minutes. Nadia, called Dr. Renner. Then respiratory. Then every off-duty nurse will pick up. Tarps from the loading dock. Garden hoses from maintenance. Warm water from the outside spigot. Prop the doors. Families wait in the chapel. They built a decon line out of nothing while sirens grew louder across town. The first vehicle wasn't an ambulance. It was a Navy transport bus, windows down, and the smell hit before the brakes finished. Sharp, swimming pool bleach rolling off wet uniforms. 37 young trainees came off in a ragged, coughing chorus, eyes streaming, the strongest ones bent double at the curb. Chlorine, Sutton said once, flat. The whole bay changed shape around that one word. Nobody wet comes through my doors, she called. We strip, we wash, we move. Gear in bags. Names on tape. A resident argued for skipping straight to tree off. Chlorine rides on cloth, Sutton said, already cutting a sleeve with trauma shears. Water first. Trust me and count heads. He trusted her. Later, under oath, he said it was the way she held the shears. A big instructor planted himself at the head of the line, soaked, jaw set. We decon our own, ma'am. Good. Then you know the order. She handed him a second hose without breaking stride. Skin folds. Hairline. Under the collar. You miss an inch, I send him back to you. Yes, ma'am, he said, to a nurse, for the first time in 20 years. Dr. Faye Renner arrived at a run, 56, gray braids swinging, the finest ER doctor in the county. She took in the tarps, the taped lanes, the eye wash stations rigged from 4 bags, and the nurse running all of it with 2 hands and no wasted breath. Well, Renner said, somebody here has done this before. Do what she says. The first crash came fast. A trainee named Tucker Riley, 23, built like a door frame, went from coughing to a high, thin whistling sound in half a minute, an airway closing. Sutton was there before his knees hit the pavement, the bell of her mother's stethoscope already warm on his chest. Strider. He goes first. She found a lieutenant with a bleeding lip. You. Count your men out loud. Keep counting till the number stops moving. 12, he called, voice shaking. 20. 31. The second bus emptied. Count, Sutton called again. 37. All present. 37 wet. Across town, In a banquet hall with gold chairs, Dean Kessler's phone buzzed face down on a white tablecloth. He raised a glass to a donor and let it ring. What happened at Driftwood General that night would later be studied line by line by people with stars on their shoulders. In the moment, it was just a hallway, a nurse, and math that refused to be polite. Sutton called poison control herself and wrote the guidance straight into the chart. Asterisk, humidified oxygen. Watch every exposed airway for delayed swelling. Minimum 12 hours observation. Chlorine lies. It lets a strong man walk out and sign himself out. Then hours later his lungs start filling from the inside. Asterisk. 12 hours, she told Renner. Every one of them. Even the ones doing push-ups against the wall. Then we need a ward we don't have, Renner said. I've counted the flow meters in storage. We have enough. They built an observation ward out of nothing. Recovery bays became bunks. The hallway grew beds with numbers taped to the floor. Sutton paired the healthy with the sick, 2 by 2, in language the sailors understood. This is your buddy. Check him every hour. Chest, lips, breathing. First wet cough. You don't come find me. You shout. Nobody argued. Renner moved through the worst cases with her braid swinging. Wherever she went, Sutton was already there, drugs drawn, sizes right, the next problem laid out before the last one closed. A trainee took a breathing tube at midnight. The machine above him settled into rhythm like weather clearing. In the chaos, Sutton's handwriting on the chart stayed clean enough to frame. Kessler finally called back at 12:40 a.m., whine in his voice, Bianca's laugh somewhere behind him. Divert whatever's left to county. Discharge whoever's upright. Stop admitting people the Navy can pay for somewhere else. This is a hospital, Blake, not a barracks. Sir, poison control says 12 hours. I have it in writing. And I have a margin. You're standing on it. Cut the wristbands, sweetheart. The line went dead. Sutton wrote his words into the record too, word for word, timed. She wasn't sentimental about insults. She kept records. Bianca arrived at 1:30, heels and a spotless coat, drawn not by the emergency, but by the sound of money being spent. She walked the taped hallway like an inspector touring a slum, flicking each oxygen meter with one red nail. 22 of these men are walking and talking. Observation is a billing decision, and billing decisions are mine. Process them out. Now. Respectfully, no. Sutton slid the poison control note across the counter. The walkers are the ones it kills, because the walkers go home. Bianca didn't look at the page. Her voice went sweet and small, built for the nurses pretending not to listen. Then sign, honey. Sole responsibility. Against the directive of this office. Your license, right here. She clicked her pen and held it out. The bay went quiet. Sutton took the pen, wrote her full name, her license number, the time, and per poison control, patients retained for observation. Then she turned the clipboard around and set her own pen beside it. Your turn. Put your name under the order you're giving me. Bianca's smile didn't move. Her hand didn't either. 6 nurses would later describe that moment the same way. The pen just lay there. Enjoy the paperwork, she said, walking away. It'll be the last you ever file here. At 2:10, a shout came from the hallway, exactly as ordered. A buddy check found a bed gray-lipped and gurgling, drowning quietly on dry land. 6 hours after exposure. Almost to the minute. Chlorine lies. Sutton was there in 11 seconds. Between 2 and 5 that morning, 5 men fell exactly on the schedule the textbooks predicted, and exactly where falling couldn't kill them. Each one caught inside 90 seconds, because a buddy stayed awake, an alarm rang, and a nurse refused to let anyone leave early. The loudest one was a hallway bed, a trainee fighting the oxygen mask with both hands, because drowning men fight everything. Sutton climbed half onto the bed frame, caught his fists against her collarbone, forehead almost touching his. Breathe with my count. In on 2. Out on 4. You've done harder things this month than breathe. Prove it. He breathed. The whole hallway breathed with him. When it was over, the lieutenant finally asked the question sitting on him all night. Ma'am, where did you serve? Sutton peeled off her gloves and shrugged. 8 years, Navy corpsman. I smelled chlorine like this once on a ship. We lost a compartment. We didn't lose a man. Decided that would stay my record. Down the hallway, a hoarse voice called, document. Then another. By sunrise, the word had settled onto her shoulders like a coat that had always been hers. Dawn came up the color of clean gauze. 37 pulses held steady. 5 near drownings reversed in beds Kessler's order said should have been empty. Dr. Renner made her last loop at 6, loud enough to be quoted. 30 years in emergency medicine. That is the cleanest mass casualty response I have ever stood inside. And it was run from a nursing station. The applause lasted 11 seconds before the elevator opened, and Bianca stepped out into the morning light with her phone already raised sideways, photographing the beds, the tape, the oxygen lines. Not smiling. Collecting. Lovely, she said to no one. 22 unauthorized admissions. Timestamped. The director will see it all by 9. The retaliation took 2 days, exactly how long it takes to type a lie in the proper format. The complaint arrived under Bianca's signature, practicing outside her license, insubordination, 22 unauthorized admissions, timestamped. One line, typed with special care, claimed the verbal orders in the chart couldn't be verified, as if Dr. Renner's own signature were a rumor. They staged the suspension at Thursday's shift meeting, in front of 40 coworkers. Bianca read it slowly, savoring the phrase pending termination. Sutton handed over her badge and keys with steady hands. At home, her husband read the whole story in her face before she said a word. He set her and signed resignation letter on the table next to the suspension memo and asked, quietly, which one she wanted to fight. Neither, Sutton said, laying her folder beside them. The smooth budget requests, the denial stamps, the note that said ambitious, for nothing, storms pass. Paper stays. She made dinner. She slept 9 hours for the first time in a month. People who keep clean records sleep the sleep of loaded weapons. Across the water, the United States Navy was reading. A training accident involving an entire class doesn't fade into a filing cabinet. It lands on desks, and the desks get bigger every day. The after-action report reached Rear Admiral Walton Reyes inside a week. One paragraph made him set down his coffee. 5 members developed delayed pulmonary edema between 6 and 11 hours post-exposure, inside an observation hold established over the objection of hospital administration. Had early discharge occurred as directed, the projected outcome is 5 fatalities in barracks housing. The hold was initiated and documented by the receiving charge nurse. Reyes had carried one rule through 4 decades of service. You can replace equipment, but never the person who thinks past the checklist. His office called the hospital twice. Both times, a polished voice promised a callback that never came. Bianca had decided no one on that shift deserved a commendation while her complaint was pending, a matter of message discipline, she called it. She'd just deleted correspondence tied to a federal investigation. She'd learned those exact words from a lawyer twice. The Navy stopped knocking and drew up paperwork instead. Pull the run sheets, the poison control recording, every chart page she initialed. Find me her name by Friday. The name came back attached to a service record that made Reyes sit back slowly. Sutton Blake. Navy corpsman. 8 years. Honorable discharge. Shipboard chemical casualty response. Letter of commendation. Get the class, he told his aide. All 37. If they can stand, they're coming. On the 21st morning, 2 documents sat on the top floor. A press release Kessler never got to send, and a termination letter. Bianca convinced him the review period was just a formality, that acting fast would look like leadership. He never once needed convincing to swing down at someone beneath him. You already know how the morning looked. A shredder eating a badge with 11 years on its face. A cardboard box waiting in the hallway. Nothing, sweetheart. That box suits you. A conference room called for real news. A speakerphone glowing with 3 words, Naval Special Warfare Command. Kessler sprinted through the lobby just as a gray staff car rolled into the lot. Sutton, box on her hip, was 10 steps from her car. His shout hit her back and fell off it. Then the staff car's rear door opened, and a white glove caught the morning sun. 37 men in dress uniforms stepped out of 2 vans behind Rear Admiral Reyes and formed up on the asphalt with the unhurried precision of a tide. They didn't look at the director. They flowed around him like water around a rock, and arranged themselves between Kessler and Sutton, facing her, sunlight snapping off brass. A sailor stepped out of formation and took the box gently from her hands. We've got it, document. Reyes read the citation into the morning wind, and the whole lot went church quiet. For decisive action, superior clinical judgment, and calm courage during the training pool casualty event. For establishing decontamination and triage under conditions of scarce resources. For retaining 22 service members against administrative pressure, an action directly credited with preventing 5 fatalities. The Secretary of the Navy awards Sutton Blake the Navy Distinguished Public Service Award. Class, attention. 37 hands rose in one salute. It held, and held, and held. Sutton stood wet-eyed and straight-backed in her cheap scrubs, in the parking lot of the hospital that had erased her an hour earlier. Behind the formation, forgotten, stood Dean Kessler, chest heaving, watching the United States Navy salute the woman he'd called nothing. That was the exact moment a silver sedan pulled in, driven by the chairwoman of the hospital board, a sealed Navy evidence box riding in the passenger seat like a co-pilot. Deborah Ainsley, the board's chairwoman and a retired federal auditor, crossed the lot at the pace of an audit finding. Kessler stepped toward her, already narrating some version where he'd led this triumph personally. Reyes cut him off without raising his voice. I called this office twice, Director. Both times a pleasant voice promised to call back. The Navy flew here to thank this hospital for the finest casualty response in our records. Imagine my morning, learning what you did to her instead. Ainsley took the termination letter from the box, read it once, and wrote a single word across the front. Void. She turned to Sutton last. This hospital owes you an apology the size of the building. I don't want his chair, Sutton said. I want my patients back. And this time, when I file a request, somebody reads it. The board session lasted 4 hours, and the evidence box did most of the talking. Deleted emails are only deleted for the person who deleted them. The recovery showed the Navy's requests arriving on the top floor twice, dying at the same desk both times, beside a message where Bianca called a federal training inquiry a message discipline issue. Cornered, she chose betrayal, the only language she was fluent in. She arrived with a lawyer and read texts aloud in a shaking voice. Asterisk, babe. Make the Blake problem disappear. The review is a formality. Be decisive. Asterisk, she had acted, she explained, entirely on the director's instruction. It saved her nothing. She was terminated for cause and reported to the state nursing board, where she learned a license can survive almost anything except signing your name to a lie and refusing to sign your name to the truth. Kessler's contract only protected him if he left without cause. The board closed that door fast. The state health department added its own citation, built on 2 smoothed-out pages from a locker folder. A denied decontamination request, his own red stamp, dated long before the night it would have mattered. He carried his own cardboard box out on a Tuesday. Nobody lined the hallway. Nobody ran after him. Sutton Blake walked back through those doors on a Monday morning as Driftwood General's new director of emergency services. Her first act funded a decon station, painted in wide yellow across the bay floor. Staff started calling it the Blake line. Her second act restored every dollar Bianca had cut. Her third was a standing drill. 3 in the morning, paid, coffee included. Challenge coins started arriving that week, 1 envelope at a time, from bases with no return address. A glass bowl by the triage desk soon held 37 of them. Tucker Riley sent a note in block letters. Asterisk, you held a line nobody funded. We stand on it now. Asterisk. At home, Dax hung a new photo in the hallway. 37 sailors in dress whites, saluting a woman in navy scrubs in a hospital parking lot. Across the bottom, 37 signatures. Across the top, 1 word big enough to read from the porch. Document. Nobody powerful saved Sutton Blake. No fortune, no famous name, no miracle. She was saved by the same things that saved 37 men in one night. Competence kept sharp when nobody paid for it. Records kept clean when nobody checked them. And a spine that bent for a crumpled paper without ever once breaking. The people who called her nothing needed her badge gone by 9. The men whose lungs she saved needed 1 hour to fix the record. That's the real math, and it's never written by the person holding the pen at the big desk. It's written in a hallway at 2 in the morning by whoever actually shows up. Titles are rented. Competence is owned. Hers walked out the front door in a cardboard box and came back running the whole building. So tell me, who held the line for you when it mattered? And did anyone upstairs ever learn their name?